Hey y'all, welcome back to Friendly Fire. Blessed are the curious. I want to start off today with something super honest. I'm tired. I'm not tired of doing this or I'm not tired of this conversation, the conversation in general. I'm just tired. The kind of tired that sits in your chest. The kind that comes from watching everything around you get louder and angrier and more confusing. And then you start wondering is any of this even real? I don't think I'm alone in that. I think a lot of people right now are running on empty. Not because they don't care, but probably because they care too much. And the machine just keeps feeding them reasons to stay activated and afraid and angry at whoever is on the other side of whatever line gets drawn this week. The media needs your outrage to survive. The algorithms, they reward the most inflammatory take. The political tribes, they need an enemy to stay coherent. And caught in the middle of all of that are regular people. People like you, people like me, who just want to know what's true and what's right and how to live. And increasingly, nothing feels real. So today, I want to go to a line in the Sermon on the Mount that I think speaks directly to that exhaustion. Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Not peacekeepers, peacemakers. There's a difference and it matters. Welcome in, let's go. Alright, so before we get into the text, I want to set the scene because I think that it helps. Jesus is delivering the Sermon on the Mount to a crowd of people living under Roman occupation. First century Judea was not a stable, peaceful place. It was a pressure cooker. You had the Romans, the occupying empire, with their propaganda, their military presence, their taxation, their version of peace, which was just really enforced submission. The Romans called it Pax Romana, the peace of Rome, which is essentially meant comply or we crush you. You had the religious establishment, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, all competing factions with competing agendas, all claiming to represent God's will, all using the Torah as a political weapon as much as a spiritual one. Then you had the Zealots, the resistance movement, who wanted to take up arms and drive out Rome by force. They had a version of peace too. And it looked like revolution. It looked like violence met with violence. It was more violence on top of violence. And then you had regular people, fishermen, farmers, day laborers, people getting squeezed from every direction, bombarded with competing narratives about who the enemy was and what needed to happen. Exhausted, they were confused and wondering just who to trust. Sound familiar? Jesus stands up in front of those people and he says, blessed are the peacemakers. Not blessed are the people who pick the right side. Not blessed are the people who fight the hardest for the right cause. Not blessed are the people who stay out of it and keep their head down. Blessed are the peacemakers. All right, guys, so this distinction is everything, so I want to stay here for just a minute. A peacekeeper maintains the status quo. A peacekeeper keeps the lid on. A peacekeeper looks at a room full of tension and says, let's just not go there. Let's keep it civil. Let's not make it weird. And on the surface, that really sounds like a good thing. But peacekeeping at its worst, it's just conflict avoidance dressed up as virtue. It's the priest and the Levite in the story of the Good Samaritan crossing to the other side of the road. It's staying comfortable while somebody else bleeds. Peacekeeping says, I don't want trouble. But peacemaking says something entirely different. I'm not even going to try to get into the Greek behind this because I don't speak Greek. But it's two Greek words that combines together. It's peace and to make or to create. It's an active word. It's a costly word. It's not the absence of conflict. It's the active construction of something. The Hebrew concept under it is called shalom. And shalom doesn't mean the absence of war. Shalom means wholeness. everything functioning the way that it's supposed to function, like right relationships between people, between communities, between humanity and God. So a peacemaker isn't someone who avoids conflict. A peacemaker is someone who enters right into the chaos and starts building something, who absorbs the hostility without reflecting it back, who refuses to be sorted into a tribe, who insists on the humanity of people on every side of every line. That's exhausting work. It's exhausting, especially right now in today's climate, because the machine is specifically designed to make that work harder. All right, y'all, so let's name it directly, because I think we kind of need to. The media. And I mean all of it. Left and right, and everything that you can think of in between, is not in the business of giving you an accurate picture of reality. Hear me. It's in the business of keeping your attention. And the most reliable way to keep your attention is to keep you afraid and angry and convinced that the other side is the existential threat. Fear and outrage. They are the most effective engagement tools ever invented. Your nervous system is not designed to distinguish between a real threat and a curated, highlighted reel of everything wrong with the world delivered to your phone every 30 seconds. We're not made for that. It just stays activated. It just stays in fight or flight. And then the algorithms don't care about truth. They care about engagement. So they learn what makes you click, and they learn what makes you share and comment, and they feed you more and more and more of that. They build a world that confirms everything that you already think you believe and makes everyone who disagrees look insane or even evil. And this is crazy, y'all. And then the political tribes, both of them, they need an enemy. A coherent political movement requires a threat to organize around. So the threat gets amplified. And the most extreme voices on the other side get platformed, because the most useful thing for fundraising and activation is rage. It is. And normal people on both sides end up convinced that they're surrounded by monsters everywhere around them. And the result is the feeling that we're feeling right now. Exhausted. Confused. Nothing feels real, because you're being, what we're being fed isn't even close to the full picture. It's all fragments, all designed to produce a specific emotional response. And here's the thing I want you to hear. That machine, it's not neutral. In the framework of the Sermon on the Mount, that machine has a master. We talked about it last week. And that master is not interested in shalom. It's interested in division, because division, that's profitable. So what does it mean when Jesus actually says to go and make peace in a world that's designed to keep you divided? And I want to be honest, I don't think that it means what a lot of people want it to mean. It doesn't mean that both sides are equally right about everything. It doesn't mean that truth doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you smile and nod and pretend that injustice isn't real. Remember episode 2? Hunger for justice is blessed. The anger at a rigged system is probably the most Jesus-shaped thing about you. That doesn't go away. But peacemaking means you refuse to let the machine decide who your enemy is. It means you insist on seeing the person behind the position, the human being behind the tribal label, the wounded man on the side of the road underneath the political jersey. It means you're willing to say, I don't fully trust what I'm being fed. I'm going to slow down before I share. I'm going to ask what's actually true before I activate. I'm going to refuse to dehumanize people even when the algorithm rewards me for it. It means in your actual relationships, your family, your community, your church, you become someone who doesn't pour gasoline. You become someone who asks questions instead of making accusations, who can hold tension without needing it to be resolved by picking a side. None of that is passive, y'all. All of that is costly. And Jesus says The people who do that kind of work, they get called something. They get called the children of God. Not children of Rome, not children of America, not children of the resistance, not children of the left or the right. Children of God. That's your identity. That's who you are when you refuse to be sorted. I want to say something that might land a little bit hard. The church in America has largely failed at this. Instead of being a community that cuts across tribal lines, that holds together people who would never otherwise share a table, we've sorted ourselves right along with everyone else. Red churches, blue churches, flagged, unflagged, vaccinated, unvaccinated, masked, unmasked. Every cultural fault line has a corresponding church fault line. And the watching world, they see that, y'all. They see people who claim to follow the Prince of Peace using the same playbook as the machine. The same dehumanization, the same outrage, the same tribal loyalty dressed up as scripture. That's not peacemaking. That's not a peacemaking community. That's just a machine with a cross on it. The Sermon on the Mount calls the church to be something the world can't produce on its own. A community where the algorithm doesn't set the agenda, where the enemy gets loved, where the exhausted and the confused can walk in and they can find something that actually feels real. That's the prophetic witness the moment is asking for. Not louder, not more activated, but more human, more present, more willing to sit with the complexity without needing to resolve it into a tribe. All right, so I want to come down so I can land this plane here. If you're tired, I see you. I am you this week. The exhaustion you're feeling, it's not weakness. It might actually be sanity. It might be your nervous system correctly identifying that what's been being fed to you is not sustainable. And it's not true. And it's not the full picture. And Jesus doesn't look at that exhaustion and say, try harder, engage more, pick the right side and fight harder for it. He says, blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the ones who are tired of the machine and they refuse to let it win. Blessed are the ones who still insist on seeing the human being behind the label. Blessed are the ones who show up to their actual lives, their families, their neighborhoods, their churches, their schools, and they choose to build something instead of just reacting to everything. You don't have to fix the media. You don't have to out-argue the algorithm. You don't have to solve the tribal divide in American Christianity. You just have to decide in your actual life, with the actual people in front of you, whether you're going to be sorted or whether you're going to be a peacemaker. That decision, made quietly and consistently over time, is what it looks like to be called a child of God. That's episode 3, y'all. I'm Cody. This is Friendly Fire. Blessed are the curious. Share this with someone who's tired. Go back and listen to episode 1 and 2 if you haven't already. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.